Alright, so other parts, you have your Arduino, you have your main board. Obviously that thing on its own cannot do a whole lot. You're going to need other things to plug into it or set up your sort of logic with the wiring before you can do any coding, because otherwise there's not a whole lot it can do on its own. So first of all, you're going to need a board. Here's some examples. As you can see, some of these are very, very cheap. You can kind of get them anywhere. Shouldn't be that much of a hurdle. If it is, you can probably talk to your school about trying to fund it. I know a lot of schools will have clubs or something that you can apply for that, you can get a small grant. Obviously, this one's like $4. I feel like most people can usually afford that. Same with wires. You're usually just going to need a lot of wires. Male to male means there's the little metal bit sticking out on both ends. Female means it's set up like the Arduino pins that I showed you earlier, where it's more of a hole that you plug something else into. Breadboards are also, female. You plug it into that. So I just get variety packs, male to male, male to female, female to female. Again, $10 for a ton of wires. It's really not the most money. So here's an example of a starter kit. This whole starter kit's $45, which is a little bit more, but maybe it's a birthday present or something like that. You have this breadboard. So this breadboard's helpful because it not only has a ton of different rows, each of which are connected and are good for wiring things, but on the sides, this red and the blue are connected all the way down. So generally, if you need something with a certain voltage, you just plug your battery into the positive, and then anything else can also plug into this same red line and get that power, so long as it goes back to this blue negative line, which also goes back to your battery. So it's just convenient for setting this up for power, and then that way your power is separate from everything else, which makes it easier to keep track of. Here's a bunch of resistors used for projects. Smaller breadboard. A bunch of these are just sample modules that are kind of fun to use. Your Arduino, and you have things like buttons, switches, a bunch more wires over here. It's a good starter kit in my opinion. The other thing you can do, which I kind of like, is recycling and being thrifty. You can take old toys that you have. Obviously this has a whole lot of lights in it, maybe a motor. If you take them apart, you can actually salvage the parts and save a bunch of money. So one example was you take something like a walkie-talkie, you open it up. This is a speaker right here. It takes a positive and a negative terminal. And you might not know this, but the way a speaker works is you just give it different amounts of electricity, which the Arduino can totally do on its own. So you can take apart, an old walkie-talkie you're not using, clip out this speaker, and then you can set it up for a project that you then use, and that essentially is costing you nothing because it's garbage that's already lying around your house, right? It's the same thing. You can ask your neighbors if they have old electronics. You can sometimes salvage some of these parts. You end up making some pretty cool projects from it. So now we're going to get into a sample project that I'm going to do.